I'm gonna start putting some of the suspension back together that I think won't interfere with any of the bodywork. I already got the mustache bar on, and now I'm gonna put this R200 mount on with the Ron Tyler mount, and then I might even put the R200 in. So we'll get to it. Technovision mount is in with the Ron Tyler style energy suspension mount. This mount is kind of one of those basic mounts that you can buy, but it was shaved so it kind of forms to the curvature of the long nose R200 a little bit easier. I'm going to try to muscle in this R200 as it sits, and we'll see if we can get it in there. All right, got her in. She's not bolted up yet, but she is hanging on her own, and it looks really good. All that time and effort and sandblasting this cover and the sanding this down, painting and powder coating, it's looking really nice. All right, got everything bolted in tight. I leveled the car out first, that way the nose of the diff wasn't pointing in any direction other than straight. Tighten these two up first, that trued it straight, and then tighten the actual nose of the diff down, and it's all done. All right, so we just got the block back from the machine shop. We've got it cleaned up, got new main studs on it. Checked the line hone, and also honed out the 4-125 board to a 4-127 to clean up any scoring. And let's get this thing on the stand. Everything turned out really nice. They all look perfect. No more scoring in any of them. And we're ready to assemble this when the rotating assembly comes in the mail. So a little bit of a small update here. Before I started recording this car, I had already configured all the brake lines, made them, and I used what was said to be nickel copper tubing, but I guess the listing was misleading. And anyways, I made all my lines. Took me, several hours over 2-3 days. And when I stored the lines, I took them back out to look at them. They were all rusted. So I had to look up that listing, make sure I read the reviews on the next lines that I bought, and saw that these were actually real nickel copper tubing. They're not magnetic, whereas the other ones were, and I didn't think to check that. But these shouldn't rust now, and I spent all day making these lines, so that's the update for it now. I didn't want to really record much of, installing lines. I feel like it's a little bit boring and tedious, but they came out good. I'm gonna start putting the urethane bushings on the front control arms and install them on the front subframe. For those that don't know, when replacing the urethane bushings, you may think that they are direct replacement for the strut rods. They technically are, but there's been a lot of cases where these are so stiff that they'll actually snap the tension control rod right at right where the threads are. And, that'll send your wheel into different directions than what you're steering. So it could be pretty catastrophic if that tension control rod snaps. So one thing you can do on these urethane bushings is just drill holes in them. It'll soften the bushings up, and then you can, install them how they're intended. Another thing you can do is run one of the urethane bushings and one normal, stock rubber bushing. Definitely buy a new rubber bushing, but I've done this several times and haven't had any issues. So I'm going to continue doing it this way, and I don't think it, really hurts the material at all. It just makes it a little bit more pliable, especially under stress. Just realized I needed to put the ball joint on top of the control arm, so fix that really quick. Got the dog legs on, as well as the sway bar holder, and now I'm gonna see if next step is starting to put the rear control arms on. All right, I've been doing a lot of work, how to put the camera down. I'm kind of trying to get this on the ground today. Got about an hour, maybe 2 hours left of daylight, but I'll run you through everything we got on here. I can't remember exactly what I filmed last, but control arms are on. I got these really nice billet control arm I guess, holders, brackets. Those look really nice. This used to be a one piece. We got they call this a dog bone. Dog bones on. I also had to run to the bolt store, Ace Hardware, to grab a lot of nuts and bolts that I thought I was missing and that I was missing. Anyways, got the steering rack on. Got the hubs and the rotors on. Coilovers are in on the front. And I think I had the struts on the last thing that I filmed. Yes, I did. I was mentioning about drilling those out. So yeah, I'm gonna keep on grinding. Next, I think I'm gonna put the rear hub assembly on. So I'm gonna level this thing out and fight that thing on there. All right, it's getting dark on me, but that's okay. We are still full steam ahead. I've got the rear control arm on, everything's up. Spindles and bearings are in. Not sure why this one doesn't spin really nice, but it could be possibly I don't have it tightened correctly. Anyways, next we are on to the other side. So just now starting to put the rear knuckle in. I got to shave these bushings down for it to fit. Then I could slam the spindle pin in there and put the coilover up into the strut housing. So let's get to it. Good job. One more. Good job.
Did it.
Good job. All right, everything's officially on. Rotor slid on. Those spindle pins, man. They can really be a pain. I thought that there's a locking tab in the center of the spindle pin. And it keeps it from rotating. It's like a little, basically a pin that locks into the spindle pin. And I thought it was directly in the center of the spindle pin. So I just knocked in the spindle pin any old way. And this is on the other side, and it turned out that that notch in the spindle pin is actually offset. So if you guys are doing this, make sure that when you go to put that spindle pin in first, that offset, that notch is correctly oriented, because I just had to bang out my new spindle pin again, which wasn't that easy, and flip it around 180 degrees and, you know, bang it back in. So it took a little bit more time to do it, but that's okay. I'm gonna put the wheels on it and clean everything out from underneath, see if I can drop it on the ground. Everything is bolted on. We're ready to drop her. Gotta clear everything out of the way, and I'm excited to see what this thing's gonna look like. All right, that was a success. What it takes sometimes to do this. I mean, a lot of this stuff is bodywork stuff from working on other cars, but I can't wait to get this car out of the garage, and somehow, somewhere or another, all this stuff does find a place and the garage does get cleaned up eventually. But successfully got it on the ground, no issues. I'm gonna pull off these mounts. I'm gonna roll it out here. So what I've been working on is prepping the doors and the hood for epoxy and other parts like the cowl and the hatch. But first I need to figure out this quick latch, how I'm gonna install the quick latch on this car. Instead of the regular hood latch, I opted for the quick latch, and the reason why is because this car actually already had the hood latch cut off of it and somebody had hood pins in it. So I'm going to utilize these holes for the quick latch, and I'll show you how that works. You can buy knockoffs of these, or you can buy, you know, the real deal ones. These are kind of expensive for what they are. I think it was like $100 for these, and the knockoffs are like 40 to 50 bucks, but a lot of people said that they were sticking and they ended up having to get new ones, so I just went ahead and got the real ones. But I'll show you guys how they work real quick for those that don't know. Basically, you're gonna set this pin somewhere in the car, and then you're gonna put the quick latch on the hood. When the hood comes down, it's going to meet with the ball and latch into it. When it latches, this button is gonna pop up. So when you go to open your hood, you simply press this button and it's gonna pop off the ball and you can open your hood. So I'm gonna put the ball in this area and I'm gonna drill out with a step bit to mount the quick latch. And this is the locking nut under the quick latch that just screws in from the bottom. So pretty simple. All right, so I got the quick latches in. And I got these mounted on there. Pretty sure they're just gonna have to go a little bit lower. So that way when it latches, the hood lines up with the cowl a little more evenly. I did a test fit and it was about 1/4 inch too high. So I'm gonna see if I can get these a little bit lower. All right, I think I got it perfect. There's no support on the front, but you can see how close it is without the front being lifted at all. And you know, this is gonna be lifted up a little bit. So right about there is gonna make it line up perfectly with that cowl. So that installed really nice. I think they look good. Gonna fill in those holes from the other hood pin latches. And you know, I need some body work here and there, but overall, decently easy install. All right, so I broke out the welder, went ahead and filled in those spots. Turned out nice. Remember when you're welding this thin sheet metal to keep spraying it with some compressed air so it doesn't warp. And while I was at it, I welded in a couple of rust holes that were coming through here and grinded them down. Hopefully that lasts. This lip on the Datsun tends to get pretty beat up by rock chips and it'll start rusting on you. These dents, as much as I want to pull them, they're not horrible, and welding a stud to them would probably, I don't know, it probably would burn through. I'm probably just gonna fill these when I do the body work. Just want to prevent any more, you know, burn throughs on welding. But these turned out pretty good. They were a little tough, but got them nice and straight. All right, now I'm gonna finish getting these neutralized. Got to spray more Ospo on them, scrub it with a Scotch-Brite, rinse them off, and then I'm going to take 80 grit to them and they will be ready for epoxy. Final pieces are prepped. The only thing left that I haven't prepped is the inspection lids that go on the side of the hood. Anyways, these are all sanded down. They're cleaned. I'm gonna flip them and clean the backside of them. Paint those first with epoxy, the backside of each panel. Let that dry. Hopefully it is dry to the touch enough to where I can flip them back to their exposed sides on the car and then paint these. But before I do any painting, I gotta wait about an hour per tech sheet manual for the prep sol to dry fully. It just says wait an hour. Don't want any fisheyeing or any chemical reaction. So I'm gonna follow the tech sheet properly, but first I gotta flip these over and clean the insides. Then I'll get all the paint ready to go. So when you go to mix your epoxy, I'm using Southern Polyurethane epoxy, so I don't know if this applies to all, but it's a 1-to-1 mix. So basically you're gonna pour, after you mix the paint with a stick, don't use a shaker. Supposedly it doesn't agitate the anything that settles at the bottom very well, so you definitely wanna use a stick. You're gonna go and pour this, you're gonna find the 1-in-1 ratio. So as you see, there's 2 different bars. whatever line you fill the first, the paint up to, so say you fill it up to the 1, you're going to fill the activator up to the 1. Fill it up to the 2, fill your activator up to the 2. So that shows you 1 to 1, and you kind of do that with each one of these depending on what your paint calls for. After you do your 1 to 1 mix, you're going to stir the activator and epoxy together very well, and then you're going to let it set for 30 minutes in the pot before you actually go to spray it. So that'll induce the epoxy with the activator, then it's ready to spray. All right, everything's ready to go, all cleaned up. For the hood and the cowl, I didn't go too crazy putting this all the way down to bare metal. This car didn't have 5 paint jobs in its life. It actually only had 1. You can see here, not a whole lot of layers on it, but should be perfectly fine. It's sanded out with 80 grit. And then for the cowl, this cowl was incredibly rusty when I first started. I put some type of rust treatments on it, sanded it, OSFO, you name it, I did it. And it's not perfect, but if for some reason that gives me an issue later down the road, get a new cowl panel and repaint it, it can be done. But everything else is ready, looks really good. And we'll get the backside epoxied. These things came out really nice. I'm happy. I think I got pretty much everything I needed to get. I'm gonna let them dry, flip them over, and hit the exterior of the panels. Kind of a dilemma. It's supposed to rain at about 5:30, and these are still setting up to be able to be handled. And I don't know if I have enough space in my garage to put all those stands in, so I'm gonna risk it. I got them flipped over. Let's hope those clouds don't drizzle anything for the next couple hours. And get these sprayed real quick. So I did have to pick up the next day. It started raining. I didn't want to chance any water, you know, contaminating the new paint. So I did it in the morning, and just now kind of setting it on there to get a good look at it. I wonder if the panel is kind of yellow. Maybe it's because the solvents aren't all the way out of it yet, but same exact paint, same ratio mixed. It's just a different shade of white, but I don't know. But it's looking good. It's still a little soft. This is super hard. It will not scratch. I mean, I'm digging into it. It's just slick. I think I'd probably scrape a little paint off there if I did it right now on the new panels, but got them on the wheel dollies. Push this over to the side, and cleaning up this area a little bit. Pull the vet in here. All right, clear some space. Should be enough to pull the car in. Very tight, but it works. So. Woo. All right, we're gonna mock fit this G-nose on here. This will probably end the video if I have enough hardware. Okay, one thing with putting this G-nose on that I noticed is these mounts have to be bent back, and the 280Z style horn mounts most likely are gonna have to be removed. We cut off the horn mounts. Now what looks like is in the way is the fiberglass is actually touching the bumper mount, and that could have something to do with it being a 280. I mean, this G-nose is intended for a 240Z, and this is a different construction than the 240Z. But I'm gonna look at it a little bit more closer, and if I have to, I'll trim this off. Good thing I was looking at it a little closer, because the headlight bucket actually goes on top of the lower valence. When I was putting this on first, I was putting the headlight buckets on first, and then this, when I was putting it up to it, seemed like it went above it, you know, over it. But what I had to do is take both headlight buckets off, put them on the lower valence first, and then put the assembly on together. Now I can put that middle piece or the bumper in first, and should almost be completed. And this is just a rough, you know, mock-up. I do think I might need to still trim this. It's kind of very tight, and it's putting stress on the fiberglass here. I'd rather that just be trimmed out. I could probably keep a lip here for this hole. It might line up there still, and just, you know, cut out just like a relief right here, and that should do it. All right, I got everything like really loosely bolted in. I mean, like, you know, nothing's bolted in really. And to me, once everything is kind of tightened up, I think that this kit is going to fit pretty damn nice. I mean, honestly, like nothing is bolted in at all. So those lines look pretty good for zero body work done to them. And this is the Marugen kit. That's the main reason why I went with this kit, is because I know that it's gonna fit much better than any other G-nose kit out there. Aside from the minor, you know, modifications I might have to do because it's a 280Z. I think it's not gonna be much work to get this thing looking really nice. All right, I went ahead and laid the hood on there. There is no hinges in it. It's, you know, literally just laid on there, and the gaps look like they will line up pretty good. This whole fender is gonna have to be moved back, you know, and the door is just hanging freely too, so everything's just really rough. Just got a little excited and wanted to get everything kind of put together with no bolts. So, but it looks great. Can't wait to start doing a little bit more body work. A lot of body work. And maybe see this thing in paint very soon. All All right, so that's gonna do it for this episode of the Z build. I'm super excited for what's to come. The content we'll be pushing out on this one. The rotating assembly is almost in, so we'll be building that LS7 short block very soon. Definitely going to be continuing the body work, get this thing ready for paint. So we'll show you guys the inflatable spray booth and what color we're choosing for this, which I might have already mentioned on the channel. So yeah guys, if you like what you're watching, please like, comment, and subscribe. We'll see you on the next one.